Okay, so make sure your title is on your page. Is it constant? And we already talked about constant means. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it can make a straight line. That's also called linear. Okay? So first, we're going to draw, bless you, a little table. And in our table, we're going to compare the number of people. Yes, the number of people to the number of teams. Okay? So, if this was basketball, let's say I have 5 people. I can have 1 team. 10 people would be 2 teams. 15 would be 3. And then I jump all over here and say 40 is 8. Okay? This is just a table. So we're going to use it to decide, is it constant, is it proportional, is it linear? Okay? So the first word we need to talk about today is rate of change. Okay? We know that change, is, what is change? Something that's what?
Something that's different.
It's different. Good. It's something that's different. It changes. Rate, we talked about unit rate last week. Unit rate is per what? Per 1. Okay? So this is just how, different pen, this one's not working. How one quantity, a quantity is just a fancy word for what? Number. How one quantity or number changes in relation to another. So we could look at like your age compared to mine. Do we change at the same time? Do we change at different times? Here, how does the number of people vary from the number of teams? It's talking about relationships. Okay? So we have this little fancy formula for rate of change. It's a triangle y over triangle x. Has anybody seen this? Okay? This is actually on your formula chart this year for STAR, which y'all will be getting a formula chart pretty soon. This little triangle, it's not a triangle. It's called delta, like the airlines, Delta. But instead of writing delta, they just write the little triangle. So what you're really doing is finding the change in the y over the change in the x. So up here in our column, whenever we have tables that look like this, your x is always on top and your y is on bottom. Okay. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't, but if they don't tell you, your x is on top, y is on bottom. So we're really just looking for the change in y over the change in x. So let's go up to y. How am I getting from 1 to 2? Plus 1. How am I getting from 2 to 3? And 3 to 8? Plus 5. So the change in x, the change in y is 1, 1, 5. Everybody know where those numbers came from? Okay, so it's delta y, or the change in y, over delta x, which is the change in x. So let's look at the x. How do I get from 5 to 10? 10 to 15. 15 to 40.
25.
Everybody know where those numbers came from?
Yep.
So now the change in x is 5, 5, 25. Now you're wanting these to all be equal. Is 1/5 equal to 1/5? Yes. Is 1/5 also equal to 5/25? Yes, because you can do what? Simplify. So do these all have the same rate of change? Yes. So if they have the same, I'm going to put R.O.C. What do you think that means?
Rate of change.
They have the same rate of change, then it is linear. Do you know what linear means?
Oh, straight.
Yep. It means it makes a straight line. So linear means it makes a line. So what that looks like is if I asked you to put this on a graph, just draw a little bitty coordinate grid here real quick. Okay, if 1 is 5 and 2 is 10, and 3 is 15, then I should be able to draw a straight line all the way up. Okay? I know it's not perfect. If you had your little graph, it would be perfect. But is it pretty easy to tell if it's linear? Yeah. Okay? If you have a graph, look at the graph. Can you graph it? Yes. Can you find the rate of change? Yes. Sometimes the question is going to ask you for the rate of change. Sometimes it's just going to ask you if it's linear. If it doesn't ask you for the actual rate of change, you can draw a graph. But is it just as easy to look at the rate of change? Yeah. Okay. So now the other word we need to talk about is constant. If something is constant, what does that mean? Constant means the same. So the same speed, the same number of days, the same number of problems. Constant. We're doing the same thing. So constant of proportionality. Now we talked about proportionality last week. If it's proportional, that means it's what? Okay, it goes through 0, 0, which is very good. It has to go through 0, 0. What else is proportionality? Things are proportional. They are... Somebody said it. Equal, yes. Okay, so our ratios are equal. It's kind of like unit rate. So constant and proportionality, you're looking at things that are equal. If they equal, they simplify to the same thing, and it has to go through 0, 0. So to do this, we're taking the ratio. Ratio is just a what? Yep, very good. It's just comparing two numbers. So we're looking at the ratio of y over x. So I'm going to go back up here to my chart. My very first y is what? 1. My very first x is what? 5. So I'm going to say, okay, 1 over 5. My next one is 2 over what? 10. My third one is
15 over 3.
3 over 15. Why does the 3 have to go on top? Because y goes on top, right? So you can't put the 15 on top. And the last one is what?
8 over 40.
8 over 40. Good. Everybody good with how I got those numbers? Did I just write a ratio?
Yeah.
Yes. You getting this down? Amara, you good? No? Okay. Now, what can I do to these ratios? I can see if I can simplify. What's the other way to check? Or you can use what? Cross products. Okay? If I'm good at division, I'm going to say, okay, I know that 2/10 simplifies to what? 1/5. Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
So that one equals 1/5. Can 3/15ths be simplified?
Yeah.
To what?
1/5.
Can 8/40ths be simplified?
Yeah.
So if I'm good at simplifying, I'm just going to simplify, and I see 1/5 is 1/5 is 1/5 is 1/5. So if you have the same ratio of y over x and your line, and I'll show you how to do this in a second, goes through 0, 0, then it's what?
Proportional.
Very good. Then it is proportional. Okay? Do we have the same ratio? Yes. So we need to check the second part, and that's what somebody said at the very beginning. We need to make sure it goes to 0, 0. So let's go back up to our chart. Does it have a 0? No. Can I easily add an extra column on? Yeah. So add a 0 to your y. How do I get from 0 to 1?
Plus 1.
Plus 1. So am I still following the same pattern right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So up top, if I subtracted 5 because I'm going backwards, would I get 0? So would this graph go through 0, 0? Yes. And I'm going to show you some examples that will not, but this one did work. So would you say that this graph, this data, is proportional?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say this data has a constant rate of change? Yes. Would you say this data is linear?
Yes.
Yes. And those are the 3 things that we're looking for today. Proportionality. Is it constant? Is it linear? Okay, pretty easy?